Once again in a battle with higher tier enemies, the New York will have plenty to worry about with so many enemy destroyers. Heading east, I skip ahead a few minutes when I begin to take fire from an enemy Fuso battleship. This Japanese dreadnought has a tremendous range, much farther than my New Mexico. The shell travel time involved in such a long-range shot, combined with the New Mexico's maneuverability, makes avoidance not assured, but at least viable. My return shots, however, collide with his ship, 3 shells dealing over 11,000 damage. Continuing to follow my team, I see that we are being capped much faster than the enemy team is. With the low top speed on the New Mexico, it's now or never. I decide to change course and head back to reset. Traveling through the narrow pass as quickly as possible, I keep my artillery trained southwest, aiming at an enemy battleship. My second salvo smashes through the side of his ship, dealing over 10,000 damage. With at least 4 enemy ships in our cap, I know that time is of the essence. Using the New Mexico's staggering rudder shift speed, I swing the ship around. Down by 2 ships, With our base almost captured, the New Mexico comes around the island like a slow-moving juggernaut, unflinchingly heading straight into battle. My first salvo is fired in sequence, 3 shells raining down on the enemy cruiser's deck, resetting the cap and buying some time. I close the distance, glancing into the cap circle and noticing multiple enemies clustered up. Filing this information away for later, I take aim and fire a 356mm shell through the Aoba-class cruiser, spraying flames into the air.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
Noticing the incoming shells, I turn towards them, causing them to fly harmlessly overhead or cause insignificant damage. The enemy cruiser is spraying shells at me, most of which are doing absolutely nothing. He has chosen to give up any chance of evasion for some reason, and the shells smashing through his ship and citadel shatter the hull and deal over 12,000 damage.
Penetration. Enemy cruiser destroyed.
Turning my attention to the enemy battleship, the New Mexico reloads, ready to pounce. Unafraid, I constantly correct my course, aiming to close the distance while still being able to fire with all 4 turrets. The enemy ship fires on my ally, and my shells strike the enemy Amagi battleship. This Tier 7 monster won't go down easy, even with the New Mexico and New York working together. Continuing to close the distance, I follow his next salvo, watching to see if my ally survives. My return fire has been frustratingly ineffective, and as our secondary batteries open, I contemplate turning towards him. Remembering his higher top speed, I turn and aim to intercept on the other side of the island instead. Coming upon the Amagi, the New Mexico roars, sending shells ripping through the enemy citadel for over 15,000 damage.
We've destroyed an enemy battleship.
The New Mexico turns completely, and I spend the rest of the battle trying to get to the enemy cap, but the low top speed of the American battleships makes this impossible, resulting in a draw. Getting top EXP in a tier 6 to 8 game was rewarding, as this was one of my best in the New Mexico so far. Making the decision to turn back and head to the cap resulted in 3 kills and an exciting match. In this battle, our team has more ships than the enemy team does. This could be to our advantage or to our disadvantage. I have seen many battles be lost by underestimating your enemy. fire at this enemy cruiser and actually come pretty close to hitting him. Later in the battle, I spot an enemy cruiser and open fire. My first salvo causes only minor injury, and he is so unimpressed he doesn't even bother to turn his weapons to face me. With all the time in the world to aim, the New Mexico reloads and her artillery shells sing out, the first falling short. I adjust my aim, and the second salvo shears through his hull as two shells obliterate the internal citadel structure.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
Within seconds, shells begin to rain down on the New Mexico, the fallen cruiser's allies seeking vengeance. The enemy cruiser continues to fire while maintaining distance, not allowing me to accurately return fire. I lose the target as they are able to widen the distance between us. I turn and head directly at him or her, reducing the profile of my ship for enemy weapons. The enemy is exposed each time they fire, and the New Mexico's return fire is devastatingly accurate. Continuing to shrug off shells, I slowly push the enemy against the edge of the map, reducing their options for escape. With nowhere to go, the enemy cruiser turns and suddenly chooses to close with the New Mexico. Swinging the ship suddenly, the enemy cruiser fires and sets the New Mexico on fire. Unimpressed, her artillery crescendos and a dozen 14-inch shells completely eviscerate the enemy cruiser, dealing over 16,000 damage.
Enemy cruiser foundered.
I glance over just in time to see the torpedo bombers drop their payload. I have the ship in reverse and I grit my teeth and take the devastating hits. Taking aim and firing a salvo into the enemy carrier as the New Mexico gains speed and avoids the second spread of torpedoes. The flooding cannot be stopped right now, however, and my damage control skill can at least mitigate the damage. And then dive bomber set me on fire. Luckily, the game ends before she is forced to endure the flooding and fire, and the New Mexico's accurate artillery fire rewarded her with first place for experience earned in this game. Thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please click subscribe below.